Sydney Winkler, and I did my annotated bibliography on suicide and the differences in suicidal brains and non-suicidal brains. I chose this topic because growing up in Colorado, I feel like suicide was very common, and I just find it to be an interesting topic because I think that there are biological differences between just depressed individuals and then depressed individuals with suicidal tendencies. And one of the sources that I found was from Nature Reviews, and it talked about a study performed by the McGill Group for Suicide Studies, and they found that 90% of those who have committed suicide had either major depressive disorder, schizophrenia, or other disorders. And they found that contributing factors to suicide and suicidal behavior include family history of suicidal behavior, genes and decreased serotonin neurotransmission, as well as other biological changes due to abuse. And this article summarizes how all these factors go hand in hand and how they increase the risk for someone to become suicidal. Those with a family history are more susceptible to becoming suicidal, and they most likely lack the genes that code the serotonin transporter, which plays a major role in serotonin metabolism. And serotonin is very important in regulating mood, and it creates the feeling of happiness. And with low levels of serotonin, a person is more inclined to become suicidal. And when a person experiences abuse early on in life, changes in mediators of biological embedding as a result have led to behavioral and emotional characteristics being associated with operational and logistical challenges, which then leads someone's brain to not be able to function properly when it comes to processing risk and making decisions, and that person then becomes more likely to be suicidal. And I also found another study performed by researchers in Pittsburgh where they analyzed brain scans of people who have attempted suicide and depressed individuals who had never attempted suicide. And as participants underwent functional MRIs, they were given pictures of angry faces and other things with negative and positive concepts. And what they found was from the scans was that the suicidal individuals, their brains were overactivated, and compared to the non-suicidal individuals. And so that just showed that when under general strain theory, when someone is under stress or are experiencing anomie, then they're not able to get over that, and they have to find a different way to cope with that. And in depressed individuals, that obviously where that portion of their brain doesn't work, they're more likely to commit suicide. And I also found in another article from Undark magazine that summarized 2 studies that were performed on suicide attempters and those who were depressed and did not commit suicide. And there was one where serotonin levels were checked in all of the individuals, and they found that the serotonin levels were significantly lower in individuals who had previously attempted suicide compared to those who had not. And they then set up a game, like a gambling game, and they gave the participants 2 decks. One deck had small wins and even smaller losses, which would ultimately lead someone to win, and then the other deck had big wins but even greater losses, which would ultimately lead to someone losing. And what they found was that those who had not attempted suicide picked up on the fact that they should go for the small wins because they knew that they would eventually win, whereas the suicide attempters continuously chose the bad deck, which just showed that the portion of your brain that processes risk and is important in decision making was not as active as a healthy individual's brain, which is why keep picking out of the bad deck and ultimately lose. And in a lot of suicidal individuals, they tend to do things that most people be like, why are you doing that? It's obviously like, do you not see that you're just gonna not win in this situation? And it just shows that suicide attempters really can't process that risk like healthier individuals can. And I also found another study where suicidal individuals were given a drug called ketamine, which is also known as a party drug, and it halted the brain circuits associated with suicidal thoughts in the suicidal individuals' brains for a short period of time, but it had nothing to do with their depressive symptoms. And that just showed researchers that when someone is under immense stress and whatnot, they those circuits are overactivated, and that is what increases someone to commit or attempt suicide when under that much stress, because portions of their brains are not functioning properly and certain areas are overactivated, which lead to irrational decision making. And I thought this was interesting in that it did relate to the course because of the biological factors and such, because even though like I mainly found things related to biological factors, there was also proof that environmental factors are what lead those biological factors to contribute to someone's likelihood of committing suicide, and how it all eventually ties in the general strain theory, and how once someone is under so much stress due to the bad environmental factors, then someone is going to attempt to commit suicide. And I would totally pick this topic again because after all the research I've performed, researchers are getting closer to being able to foresee whether an individual is going to commit suicide, and they'll be able to find a way to prevent it by either being able to get someone in therapy before it gets too bad, or by being able to inject like serotonin into an individual to where they're able to feel happy again and whatnot, and so serotonin can do its job. And so, yeah,